38.5.
Okay.
What's up, Dave Zangaro?
There he is.
Dave,
What's up, guys?
bro?
How you doing?
Oh, man, that's a nice plant you got working back there. What is that?
It's fake. It's a fake plant. Yeah, it would be dead by now if it was real.
Not a green thumb, are you, huh?
Yeah, when I bought that, I bought one for I bought these two big plants. I got them from one of these like home goods stores. But I have like a pretty small car. I have an Altima, so I'm like shoving them in there, and it looks like I'm like in a jungle driving home. Yeah. What's going on, guys? How are you?
I'm trying to not talk about whatever that was last night. Seriously. I'm distracted by your fake plant.
Yeah, it was wasn't fun to watch, was it?
Whew. What was it?
Yeah, how do you feel about how they how they handled, the Hurts situation and how it like snowballed into all these guys not playing, man? You think that was professional? You think was that Nick Sirianni, taking command of his team and making the decision to Nick's guys playing? I mean, how do you think he, did with that whole situation? Then, talking about it.
Yeah, well, the Hurts thing, if he's not feeling well, he has to go checked out of the hospital. That's one thing. And that you're right, they kind of snowballed from there because they were going to play their starting O-line, and then they were like, well, we're not going to do that now. So you had two starters out of the five out there. But even if Hurts played, I don't think he was going to play a ton. I think we're probably looking at, another 2 or maybe 3 series. So this was basically what we're going to see anyway. Of course, we wanted to see what Hurts was going to do with that first team offense, but we're going to see a lot of the backups anyway. And on defense, I mean, none of the D-line played. Slay was out. The only guys who really played a ton were the linebackers, and they maybe played too much when you're talking about, I don't know. It's a tricky thing because I understand that they value the joint practices, and I get that. Like, I think I agree with them philosophically that there's more value in the joint practices because you can set it up the way you want. If you want to see a red zone period, you put them in the red zone, and you don't have to wait for the situation to dictate it. But I think there is a difference. You're not tackling to the ground. It's not real football. And this is kind of the way the league's going. I don't want to just single out the Eagles. I mean, a lot of teams are kind of doing this now where they're just not putting the emphasis on the preseason. But it's a hard sell for, to get people in the stands to watch that. And, for a guy like Nick Sirianni, it was like last night was the first tough question I really had to ask him was, how do you be the competition guy and then put that out on the field? It doesn't seem to mesh, right? I mean, he's talked about competing in everything, and they weren't competitive last night. So
not at all.
I get the point of emphasizing the joint practices, but I don't think these preseason games are complete throwaways either.
Dave, my theory would be that he's simply full of bleep. and it's not a negative. It's not these hollow platitudes. And we all knew that Joe Flacco wasn't going to be the starter. So what it did is it hurt the credibility of other positions that we knew there was going to be competition. Again, it doesn't mean that Sirianni, Dave can't coach, all these other things. It's just, it was a really tough sell to believe that he comes in as the competition guy. And to your point, or maybe not, maybe what I'm taking from it, last night, I think, proved to a lot of people that he's just like everybody else, trying to get his feet wet and trying to get a handle on this thing.
Yeah, and I do think he has stressed competition in a lot of ways. We've seen it at practice. I mean, they're very competitive practices. And even back in the spring, he was finding ways. They do like these little competitions. So he does care about competitiveness, but it's tough to care about it in practice and then put that product on the field in a preseason game. It's tough to be competitive when you're putting guys out there who aren't going to be on the team. And that's the other big takeaway is the depth on this team. And we've seen it in 2 weeks, it's
sucks.
Yeah. I mean, especially that second, third team defense, those defensive linemen.
That's draft picks. There were draft picks out there.
I don't want to single too many guys out, but like Marlon Tuipulotu in 2 games. This is a guy who played at USC, who I thought would acquit himself nicely, has really struggled all summer. He's not ready. I don't even know if he's worth a practice squad spot at this point.
You're right about that. So that's kind of telling because at this point, I don't see him as a guy that's even going to, be on the team. So why even let him go out there and take reps? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
that's why I didn't
learn.
I didn't want to learn his name. I didn't even try to learn his name.
It's a tough name.
Just call him by his first name. Too. Yeah.
I'm not calling him anything. He's out of here.
He's out.
Yeah.
Well, Dave,
It's
what did you
been
think
tough.
about the wide receiver depth position? I mean, you see Fulgham, JJ, Arcega-Whiteside, and Hightower playing a lot in that second half against backups, and none of them really did anything to stand out. Where are those guys right now?
Yeah, you're right. And again, though, it was tough to get an evaluation on some of those guys last night because of what was around them too.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line was bad, the quarterback play was bad. And I'm not saying those guys deserve a pass, but it's tough to get a read on them.
Right.
What I'll say is that I think all three of those guys are in jeopardy that you mentioned. Fulgham, we came into this camp thinking he was a lock.
Right.
I don't know if that's the case right now. I haven't seen anything to me that says he needs to be on this team. And, J-Jaw played, 7 snaps and he had 1 drop.
Mm-hmm.
Hightower, he was having an up and down camp before he got hurt. He missed a lot of time. I mean, it was encouraging to get him back out there. But, yeah, I mean, they have 3 starters in Devontae Smith,
Rager
and Watkins. They have Greg Ward, who you can at least rely on, and then a lot of question marks. So it's a young group, and it doesn't look very deep right now.
Is this kind of telling on, when guys were starting to look at Howie like, all right, Howie did something. Look, he's got a guy, he went up and got Smith, and then now, guys are starting to turn the corner. Rager, they say Rager's having a better camp now. But, you see the lower guys not really doing too much. And the depth on this team are young guys that are the depth. The receiver position are the only guys really that are really playing at a nice level. Everybody other than that, I can't see him doing very much. Williams will play good. McPherson got roasted yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was a rough game for him.
Tough day yesterday.
It's been a rough week for him. I mean, I thought he struggled in the first preseason game, and then in the joint practices, I thought he got bested quite a bit. And then he has the game yesterday where, it seemed like Cam was targeting him with a lot of time, granted, but it seemed like Cam was targeting him. He had that defensive hold. He had a poor effort on the tackle attempt on that touchdown. So it'll be a big week for him. Especially a young defensive back, seeing how he responds to it. Because as a defensive back, you're going to get beat. You're going to have these moments. So this is really the first time in his young career where he's been tested. So, and he's someone, you can look at some of those guys last night and be like, they're not going to play this year. They're not going to be on the team. He has a big role. He's the top outside backup. And based on what we've seen the last few years, he's going to play as a rookie. So he's someone to watch over this next week and see how he responds to it.
Dave, how do you think they handle this coming week in practice? Now, going up against a team that they are going to face in the regular season in the Jets, with these joint practices, the Jets are going to get to really look at, some of the things that they do. How do you think they go about this next week?
Yeah, it's a good question because you're right. The Patriots, they don't play in the regular season.
Right.
The good thing about the Jets game is that I think it's week 13. So you have a long time before you see them in the regular season. So I think they might hold a little bit back, but I think it's fair to say a lot's probably going to change between now and week 13. So I don't think it's going to be like, it's not going to be, hopefully it's not as vanilla as it was last night. I think they're going to show some stuff. Maybe they hold a little bit back, but they need it. I mean, especially if we know the way they feel about the preseason, so they're going to need these 2 days to really be like a game for them and to really get the final evaluation on a lot of these players because they're going to have to make roster spot decisions on these practices.
Yeah, I wonder, do we have any idea what they're going to do with the running back position as far as like actually on the field throughout the games?
We're starting to get some hints. The one thing with Miles Sanders that we've seen all summer and it's troubling are the drops. Because in order for him to be fully utilized in this offense, he has to catch the ball. And I don't think you can just make him a runner. So I think at a certain point, you kind of have to live with the drops if you're Nick Sirianni. You can't stop throwing the ball to Miles Sanders because when he does get it, he's such a threat. So you'd like to see him clean that up. We have seen a lot of 21 personnel from them in training camp, which I kind of like. They have the personnel to use it. If it's Miles and Boston out there or Miles and Kenny Gainwell, who I think is going to have a role at least as a pass catcher in year one, and he should at that position. That's the one thing. Running backs in this league, they can play from day one, and I would use them right away. So I'm curious to see how much 21 we see. I think they used it like 5 times last year under Doug. So I think it could be a personnel package that they try to utilize and get good matchups throughout the season with. And I think they have the right players to do it. They have guys who can be threats to catch the ball out of the backfield. And that's kind of what you want when you're in that personnel grouping. So ultimately, it's still Miles Sanders. He's still the top guy, but they're going to mix the other 2 in there. Talking about Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. And look, I think Jordan Howard's probably on this team too. So I think he'll have some kind of role. I think really the reason you keep Jordan Howard around is if Miles gets hurt, you have someone that can kind of shoulder the load.
No question, and also I look at the offense and I feel as though I got lied to again. And I'm be saying run the ball till I'm blue in the face again. I mean, all right, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck,
it's a duck.
So first preseason game, we threw the ball, religiously. The next game, we throw the ball religiously. And I'm thinking since we have a second-team quarterback and we see Mullins is not playing well, then you run the ball. Did we run the ball? Nope. So, all right. So that walk like a duck in the first game, quacks like a duck the second game. The third game, if he goes out there airing it out again, then I'm screwed for the rest of the year because I'm going to be screaming run the ball and they're not going to do it.
I think they're going to run more than they did last year, obviously under Doug. You have to remember a big part of their offense is going to be utilizing Hurts' legs or at least the threat of his legs. So we're going to see a lot more read option and maybe even some RPO stuff that they're not going to show in the preseason. We've seen glimpses of it in practice. So just by that stuff alone, I think they're going to be a little heavier with the run. I agree with you. In the preseason, we haven't seen it, but they'd be foolish not to run the ball, especially if that right side of the line is healthy, because those guys, and we've seen it, in the few practices they've been back together with Brooks out there, you can run behind those 2 guys. And I think they will. It's tough trying to gauge. I feel like I've learned a lot more about Sirianni's offense from practices than these games. These games to me really aren't indicative at all of what his offense is going to be. So I wouldn't worry too much about that in the games. I think we've seen a pretty good blend in the practices. And they haven't tried to hide the fact that they care more about the practices than the games.
My only concern with this, and it's a big one, is that there are so many new moving and really new parts to this system. It's not like the coach has been here with an offensive system and there's a new quarterback who's a veteran. It's not like even on defense where there are guys who have been here for a while that they're used to it. And look, I'm not saying that it takes you 6 or 8 weeks in the regular season, combine the preseason, to figure out who to throw the football to, but they really look like they're doing themselves, maybe it's just due to circumstance, Dave, a disservice by not getting quality reps to at least get that feel to where you can build from practice to the game, because that's where I think there's probably going to be some struggle maybe early on, is the disconnect from great practice guys, we were competitive, we got everything we need to get done, to, wait a second, we're not going up against a hodgepodge of 1s, 2s, and 3s right now. This is a third quarter against a head coach who can game plan and react at the half. That's what I'd like to see a little bit more, but I don't think we're going to get that week 3.
No, you definitely won't get it. And it's kind of a philosophical thing with Sirianni. Does the need to see it in a game outweigh the advantage he thinks he has because no one's seen his scheme? And he doesn't. He thinks that's his biggest advantage right now, is that no one necessarily knows what he's going to run, and he's going to hold that close to the vest. So, whether or not that's the right decision or not, that's his thinking. So, yeah, you're not going to see it. The third preseason game is going to be just as vanilla as the first 2 because he thinks that's his advantage. And look, and I can tell you from watching every practice, the offense they run in practice is not the offense we've seen in these first 2 preseason games. So, right or wrong, defense also. Yeah, defense, you're right. It's been very vanilla. But that they think right now that's the advantage they have on the league is that.
Does that work? Like, do we have, I don't know how many examples you've covered, a lot in different cities. Like, this is so many new pieces that's my concern, which is like Sirianni maybe getting over his skis, right? To think that, yeah, man, you have, like, it worked with the Colts to hide stuff because people knew what they were doing. Does that make sense? Like that, the concern about, I don't even know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, I know. I get what you're saying. I think, and I'll play devil's advocate a little bit because I'll try to see it from his perspective. His perspective is guys do know what they're doing. We're seeing it in the practices, which he cares about more than the games. So it's tough because the rest of the world and you guys are watching these preseason games and the team doesn't care about them. The team cares about what they're seeing in practice. And it's like a leap of faith, right? It's like, I guess if the coach says it's working because you don't see it. And I get why that's scary for fans because you're watching. How do you watch that game last night and not be scared, right? It looks awful, but and I'm not even trying to defend what they did last night, but
no.
I think that's what their thought process is, that, hey, we're seeing what we want to see in these practices, and we feel like we're in a good spot based on what we've seen. So we're going to hold what we do close to the vest. We're not going to let the rest of the league scout us on that, even though I think, the rest of the league's not a bunch of dummies. They kind of know what's coming. They can kind of see the past of Sirianni. They can see the past of Gannon and kind of figure out, at least at its base, what these schemes are going to be. But they do have some wrinkles that they can throw in that teams haven't seen, and they're going to try to utilize that.
The benefit of them playing their next game on a Friday night is we don't have to talk about it the next day because by Monday, everybody will have forgotten about it.
My favorite part of last night, we're in the second half, and some of these preseason games, you look up the clock and you're like, how are there 11 minutes left in the third quarter? And at one point, Rube looks at me and just goes, we have to do a podcast on this. And we're like, oh, no. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah. You know what's worse than that? I'm sitting in there with Seth, and Seth's across the room. And he leans up, looks down at me and says, hey, Brooksy, I'm not watching this anymore, man. I'm watching YouTube.
He went to YouTube.
I saw Seth last night. I walked in, and I see Seth. I haven't seen Seth in a long time, since last season. I walked in, I said, what'd you think? And he just goes, ugh. He just walked away. He just grumbled at me. I missed that.
He was hot, man. But I mean, you're right, man. It's not the same things you see in camp. I'm glad you reminded me of that because in camp I see numerous ways especially on the defensive side of the ball where they couldn't stop the run yesterday. They were playing so vanilla they couldn't stop it. You see Belichick, he's blitzing, but if you go to practice, I mean, these guys are mixing up as far as fronts. They're playing overs. They're playing unders. They're playing bare fronts. Where they cover the center.
Very multiple.
Guards. Yeah. So you don't even see that. You know what I'm saying? I don't see. We'll see this. I don't see at this point the stripping of the ball and all that stuff. Trying to create turnovers that I see in practice. But it should carry. I hope it carry over to the season. But I mean, I see all this stuff in practice. Then I don't see any of it in the game.
Yeah, and that's what I talked about. It's kind of like a leap of faith.
Practice. Somebody got to do the Allen Iverson.
Can you trust what you see during the week? And
right.
I don't know the answer. I don't know how good this team's going to be, but I can tell you the team we've seen at practice is not the team we've seen in the games. Even last week when they performed well, that still was schematically. That's still not what we've seen during the week. So it's tough to figure out, but I do think it's not going to look like it did in these couple of preseason games.
I was supposed to be the franchise player, and we sitting here talking about practice.
Amazing.
Dude, I mean, I give my all out there. And we talking about practice? Practice? But that's what it is, man. I'm looking forward to seeing this next week if he takes total command of everything again, because I didn't see it this last game. I saw it the first game, didn't see it the second game. Now in this third game, I want to see him take command again. I want to see, Nick Sirianni show us that, all right, this is my team as we go forward, and I'm making decisions now. Because, I saw him scrambling a little bit this first game, the second game. And, it made me a little nervous on, who this guy is. But, we'll see. We'll see. Against the Jets team, young quarterback also, you can't just get beat up like that. I think they're going to need more reps from the starters this next game, than they had before, because after this, it's like 2 weeks until they play their first game.
It's 23 days from today until they play Atlanta. And Atlanta looked like garbage in their first game.
You can not that you can afford injuries, but you have a long layoff after this third game before.
Right.
It's kind of like the way the old third preseason game was anyway.
Yep. Play a half.
You had that long layoff. So I'd like to see the starters. I don't know if we're going to. I mean, based on what,
right?
Yeah, I mean, based on what Sirianni said last night, I mean, he was asked if Hurst is going to play in the third preseason game, and he just went to, we have these joint practices coming up, and they're really valuable. So I'd like to see him a little bit more.
Not playing because, as you mentioned, Sirianni can gain more value from these joint practices than he can the preseason game.
Yeah, and look, generally I agree with him, but I'd still like to see a little bit in game action. You know, Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith out there. We haven't seen it yet in a game. That'd be nice to see. By the way, I was encouraged by Devontae. Even though we haven't talked about him, but even though he got off to a rough start, him and Flacco clearly weren't on the same page for a few of those, but he can separate. I mean, that was fun to watch, and it's a little glimpse of it, but I wouldn't worry too much about him after last night.
All right, hold on.
Glass half full.
Got to break real quick on the network. We're back in 3 on Sportsman Radio. All right, go ahead. I don't know how much longer you can stay, Dave, so you can leave whenever you like. I don't know what these guys told you as far as how long you've already been here.
Whatever you guys need.
Minutes. We'd love to keep you. I just, I don't want somebody to walk in the back of that stream being like,
I'm just out of questions to ask about.
I'm not.
It's preseason, man. I can't wait till it ends.
Well, we talking about Devontae Smith and, how he approached the game. I was kind of surprised that he said that the game is slower. I can understand as far as, the pace of the offense and the pace of those guys out there. But is the game really that slow for him? Is he that dynamic of a player that – because, nobody could cover him out there. Any drops that he had, it's because he dropped them or the quarterback threw behind him. But I couldn't find anybody to cover him on any of the routes that he did. So the game might be that slow for him. I was surprised to hear him say that, though.
Yeah, I don't think he was talking about
the players
like
in front
the
of
actual. Well, I don't think he was talking about actual game speed. I think he was talking about the pacing of huddling.
Yep.
And so in a way, he does have more time to process. He has more time to think about, which is kind of scary when you think about with him because he's already such a good route runner. He's going to the line and he's seeing, and he has time to process how he's going to attack each route. And with him, that's dangerous because he's such a good route runner. And we saw it in glimpses last night. That one route he ran for the first down, it's funny. I had a lot of people tell me it was a routine route. No, it's not. Right. He dug his foot in the ground. He took off the other way. He was running in a sprint and cut in and sprinted the other way. That's not routine. He didn't round that out at all. So
no. It was precise. Creating separation. He stacked on the DB, banged him inside, was able to go outside. That's NFL caliber route running with the separation to go with it. It's saying he's too small, but he didn't look too small out there today. Yesterday.
If you separate, that's all you need.
Right.
I understand the fear of him coming across the middle and getting hit, but he can separate, and that's all that really you need. He's fast enough too. We didn't get to see the deep speed yet,
right?
But he has long speed. He has he's not like Quez, who's running a 4.35, but he has long speed. He's a long strider.
Has Quez done anything to help him move up on the depth chart?
Quez? Oh yeah.
But where?
He's in practice.
No. I'm saying where do you
number 3?
Do you think he's I don't think he'd be the third behind Fulgham.
No, Fulgham. He's ahead of Fulgham.
He's ahead of Fulgham. So the way they've been lining up a lot is Devontae outside, Rager outside, and Quez in the slot. I think they're going to rotate those guys a little bit. So me personally, I would put Rager in the slot a lot more than they have. I like him in small windows. I like his shiftiness more than Quez. I'd probably have Quez on the outside, but they've had a lot of Quez in the slot. They can kind of utilize, like we saw in that little bubble screen in the first game. They've utilized him a lot like that. He's going to play a lot. And it's kind of Quez has been really good, and the other guys have struggled. Fulgham had a chance to earn a spot as a starter, and he hasn't done it. Hightower would have had an opportunity. He hasn't had a very good camp. So Quez everyone seems impressed by Quez. The one cool thing about him is we all knew he was a burner. He worked really hard this offseason on, and I've talked to him a lot about it, but like harnessing his speed. So getting in and out of breaks, like making it look like he's running the go on every play, and then getting into his break and cutting out. And I think he's learned a lot. He worked out with Calvin Ridley this offseason, who's really good at that kind of stuff. And I think it's showing. He's a much better player than he was last year.
Bama boys. Yep.
Yeah.
Ridley's another good player.
I need to see this stuff against teams. They have a murderer's row the first 4 weeks of the season, and I'm not going to get crazy about a guy who, now granted, last year was a disaster, and if you believe Travis Fulgham, people were purposely shifting around the depth chart for whatever reason, but it's just hard, guys. And I'm not speaking just to Dave here. I don't want this to be like, oh, why is
you think Atlanta's a murderer's row?
I think that 1 through 4. If you don't beat Atlanta, you're going 0 for 4.
Well, yeah, then yeah, right.
Yeah, and I don't think Atlanta is an easy victory by what I've seen on the field, and they've got guys that are stepping right into that absence of Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley being one of them, the rookie that they got as well. They did get a little bit better on defense, and look, they have a quarterback who can make throws. That's all I care about. So my point being is that I don't know. This whole thing with Sirianni and like buying into Sirianni means that you have to, and I feel like this is kind of the social convo with it, which is like, man, everything is so much different and better than it was over the last couple of years. I don't know, man. Like when I hear Sirianni talk, I'm sorry, guys, I don't believe him. I don't believe in him. I don't. He doesn't. And look, that could be me, and I'll gladly own it. We'll have Zangaro back on, and he can say off the network on the stream, you bleeping, dumb mother bleeping. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You wasted 25 minutes of my time back at the end of August for this crap. I want to be the first to tell you, Shander, enjoy this crow. It's just hard. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's, the JAKIB Negadelphia in me. I don't know what it is anymore. But
what about him? What about him do you not believe in? Like, what about him does not resonate?
He seems like a mini Gruden. He seems like he's built off these platitudes. And like, I'm waiting for a story, Dave, where he comes out and tells you or somebody else in the media about competition, where he likes to set the shower really hot and then jump to cold and see how much of his body he can wash before it gets too cold, and then repeat the cycle. Like that's
what you're saying, and like it can.
I'm not asking you to defend or validate me. We're just having a conversation. Like this.
Sure, I get it, and I think there's like,
because I love you, man. I don't want you to think.
You can hear some of this stuff, like you can hear some of the stuff he goes through, and you wonder how the players are going to receive it, right? And that's the biggest thing. Is like if he's saying all this stuff and the players are rolling their eyes, then it's worthless. But I don't get the sense that that's been the case. I get the sense that the players really do like him and they are buying in. And, I've seen moments with him, and you always wonder too, like when you're a quote unquote players coach, like, do you have what it takes to then flip it and be a hard ass?
Be the heavy. Yeah.
But Doug, didn't it not work?
What?
Where he had to, like, towards the end of his tenure, he was this player's coach and he was very buddy, and it was hard for him to put his foot down.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know if that was his problem. There were a lot of problems at the end. But I have seen Sirianni give some really tough coaching. And I've seen him be really hands-on. Look, I don't know if it's going to work. I have no idea. Yeah, with Rager especially. And the receivers. That's his specialty.
That's his thing, yeah.
Look, I don't know if he's going to be a good coach, but I've actually been pretty impressed by what I've seen this summer from him. And the key for anything that he's done is that it looks like the players are buying in, and it starts with the veterans. If he does all this competition, 5 core values stuff, and Jason Kelsey's at the back of the room rolling his eyes, then it's all for nothing. But I don't get that sense. And from private conversations I've had with players, they actually really do seem to like this guy. That it seems like they're buying in. Now, are they talented enough to be a good team? I don't know, but I don't think that he's in over his head. I really don't. I think he's had a pretty impressive summer, honestly.
To be fair, though, there aren't many people that have the tenure and stature left to criticize, right?
Yeah.
Kelsey ain't going to be here much longer. Brandon Graham is basically holding on. Lane Johnson may be the only guy. Brandon Brooks is hurt more than he is healthy.
Cox.
Fletcher Cox has been involved in trade rumors and all this other stuff happening here. Jalen Hurts is probably on the way out no matter how well he plays. You're right. I mean, who
Yeah, but I mean, those are the veterans but those are the veterans. So they're here right now. So you have a lot of it, for better or worse, you have a lot of star players on this team, star players who are over 30, but if they don't buy into the coach, then the younger players aren't. So that's the way I view it. Like, you have Fletcher Cox is a leader on the team, and Brandon Graham is a leader on the team, and Jason Kelsey is a leader on the team as long as they're here. So I think that Sirianni was wise to come in and try to get those guys on his side, because once they are, the younger guys are going to do whatever the heck the veterans are saying and whatever the veterans are doing. Speaking
of a veteran who's still here.
I mean, okay.
What?
Dave, we're just keeping Dave until Dave.
I just got one more.
Okay.
Because Zach Ertz is still here, and there's now 2 injuries in the depth chart at the tight end position. Rodgers gets hurt last night. The young kid got hurt during the week, is going to be on the shelf for a while. That means Zach Ertz is going to be here at least till the trade deadline?
No, well, I don't think Rodgers got hurt. Kroom got hurt.
Or Kroom, I'm sorry. Yeah, wrong guy.
I mean, Kroom wasn't going to be here anyway. The Tyree Jackson one's interesting because he's played. He had a very good camp, so I don't know if they'd risk lose. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with him, if they basically redshirt him or if they carry him through. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been so wrong about the Zach Ertz thing all summer and really all offseason. I didn't think he'd be here right now. I thought he'd be gone by the draft. I thought he'd be gone in April. So I guess with every passing day, it's more likely he's going to play here. I don't know if it makes a ton of sense, honestly. I think they're a better team with him, but if he takes snaps away from Dallas Goedert, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I think with that, like I said, with every day he's here, it's more likely he'll be on the roster.
Awesome. Good stuff, Dave. Appreciate it, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, fellas. Take care.
You got it, man. Dave Zangaro joining us. All right. And if you're not following Dave on Twitter, it's Dave Zangaro NBCS, correct? There's no underscore in there.
I don't think there is.
No, it's D Zangaro.
D Zangaro, that's it. Yeah.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.